Welcome back to another episode of the WarRoom. I'm your host, War52896, and today we're going to be covering the regionals that took place online hosted by Carta Magica on September 28th. Now let's take a look at the top 16 breakdown for our first regionals in North America for the EX7 format. So we have 4 blue-green Imperialdramons, 3 ancient Garurumons, 2 7th grade Demon Lords with one of them winning the whole thing, 2 Leviamon, 1 pure MirageGaogamon, 1 Galaxy Toolbox with a MirageGaogamon Hexablown Apollo top end, 1 Armor Vaccine, 1 Fender Lugamon Takemikazuchi, and 1 Mother Control Black Hybrid. So if we look at the spread here, it's a lot more diverse than the Niagara regionals. However, when you compare to the Dallas regionals, where it was no deck had more than two decks per within the top 16, you can see here that Imperialdramon and Ancient Garurumon are taking up 7 of the 16 slots, and if you want to throw in the pure MirageGaogamon, that's 50% representation of just blue decks. But on the flip side, we see a lot of purple decks here as well, with the 2 Demon Lords, 2 Levias, and the 1 Fender Lugamon Takemikazuchi. And with the 7th grade Demon Lords in particular, it's very surprising to me that it's doing as well as it did, because not only did it win, the other one also got 3rd place. Because I just assumed with the prevalence of blue decks like Imperialdramon and Ancient Garurumon, which from my experience is a very difficult matchup for 7th grade Demon Lords, I didn't expect it to do as well as it did. So that's pretty impressive. So the first list I want to talk about is the 7th grade Demon Lords list that got 1st place. So this is Sergey's list, who is also known as Tessera, who's a Twitch streamer that streams his games often. So you can always go to his Twitter or his Twitch VOD to get more insight into the deck. But just looking at this deck, some key points that I want to point out is the inclusion of the Shoto, which is a tech a lot of people discuss going into the format. So decks like this and Royal Knights, these quote-unquote timer decks, do a lot better with the Shoto, because now you're adding another, I don't want to say stall element, but more of a defensive play to extend your timer. Now you're not as reliant on the Creepymon to be your blocker. You can actually give your blocker to any of your Demon Lords now, but especially giving it to the EX6 Leviamon Chaos mode is really good, because anytime this would leave a field, you can just float into another one of your Demon Lords from your trash, which is really good. So you can go into your Beelzemon and Digivolve, or go into your Creepymon or Leviamon and pop, or go into your Buffmon Rage mode and just suspend. So it's a really good extender for the deck to help you survive long enough to reach your win con of going into your Leviamon. Another tech that I really like is the Akira Kurata. So this is known as the Beelzemon Tamer, and so at first glance when you look at it, I think the obvious application for this is to just draw and fill up your trash and help you cycle through your deck, because this deck is pretty piece reliant and you tend to have a low hand size and you don't really draw much with the deck. So that's a really good application for the card. But I think another really neat aspect of this card is it helps you counteract one of the biggest problems for this deck, which is Imperialdramon Paladin Mode Ace. Because if you have your 7 Demon Lords in trash, under your gates, and you also have Nagudamon in trash, and your opponent recognizes this, they can just hard slam the Paladin or even Evo to bottom deck your trash, and you have to start looking for the Nagudamon again. So what this lets you do is, if you're facing a blue or green deck, just always keep one Nagudamon in your hand, and even if they Paladin Mode Ace on your critical turn, and they may think that they're safe, but you can simply just trigger the Akira first to draw one, and then pitch the Agudamon, putting it back in trash, and then triggering your gates to play out the Agudamon. So the Kurata is really nice for that as well. So yeah, congratulations to you, Tessera, and again, you can go check out his Twitter or his Twitch VOD for his matchups and his insight onto the deck. So the next deck I want to talk about is the 2nd place Galaxy Toolbox list, piloted by Brody. So this is a deck that I saw in a couple of our locals in the Toronto area, so even one of our own case hunters, Chaos D-Grade, has been really experimenting with this deck, and it's crazy how memory efficient the Galaxy lower end is, with the 2 rookies and the Ko and Sayo, and also the Galgamon. The Ko and Sayo Tamer is pretty nuts because it doesn't have the restriction to Evo into specifically a Light Fang or Nightclaw Digimon. It only has the restriction on tucking the source. So you can tuck the source on an adjacent stack to let your main stack Digivolve into something that isn't a Night Fang or Light Claw. So that's why it will see cards such as the MirageGaogamon, the Hexablow, and most terrifyingly the Paladin Mode Ace. Being able to go to Paladin Mode Ace for free is pretty nutty, because This deck is pretty good at controlling the board and stalling out with Hexablow and Crestmon, so your opponent can sometimes inadvertently go wide, and the Paladin mode is phenomenal at just taking advantage of that and punishing that. And like I said, this deck is extremely memory efficient with the Galaxy engine, and also having the Madoki Betamon is really nice here too, because that prevents the mirror from popping off against you, because the memory efficiency of this deck really comes from memory gain. It also punishes other decks that really abuse memory gain, such as Leviamon or Mirage. So congrats to you, Brody. This is a really cool deck. The next list to talk about is MirageGaogamon. So MirageGaogamon is a deck that I thought would do a lot better post-ban, but in both of the post-ban BT17 regionals we had, it didn't really have much of a showing. But I'm glad to see that the deck is back in EX7. And it has some new tools to really take advantage of the meta now. The two new pieces from EX7 you're going to see here are the Otamamon Floodgate and the Hexablaumon. So the Otamamon is equivalent to stuff like the Solarmon or the Psychmon, where your opponent can reduce play cost. And this is really good for decks like Demon Lords, which was previously a very difficult matchup for this deck, because they tend to have very little cards in hand, and also you have to play around the Leviamon Chaos mode, because if you remove it, it just floats into one of the other Demon Lords and pops your stack, which can be really annoying. And the Hexablaumon is crazy for this deck, because it's source stripping and it's another Floodgate along with your MirageGaogamon, so this prevents things with equal or less sources from suspending. And the Ice Suit ability is pretty good too for matchups like the Mother Control, where you just don't care about big DP blockers, you just care about the sources, and Hexablow plus the Zunamon are really controlling it. I do think it's interesting that the level 5 lineup has now reduced Zunamon Ace to just 1, as I previously thought this was the best level 5 in the deck, and what kind of made the deck really annoying, the play of just hard playing Zunamon Ace and then going MirageGaogamon like turn 2, shutting your opponent out from really drawing or adding cards to their hand by effects, and instead opting for 4 of the Honkumon, which is really interesting. So now the deck seems to be going wide. The Honkumon is really cool because it does what the Mock Galgamons are intended to do to help unsuspend your stack, but it's also playing out a body, and I think the body you really want to play out with this is really your Galmon, which draws a card, which forcibly triggers your MirageGaogamon or adds a 9th card to your opponent's hand for the burst mode. And you can also Digivolve on top of the Galmon into the Galgamon again for essentially 1, forcing another draw, and it's really a way to accelerate the number of cards in your opponent's hand. So this is a very cool innovation and evolution of the deck. This is a deck that's been a top meta deck for a really long time now. I know a lot of people are frustrated with this deck, myself included to be honest, but it wasn't performing the past couple of regionals, so I thought maybe it's kind of died off, but these Mirage players are always innovating, they're always finding a way to break this deck even more. So it's cool to see that this has become sort of the blue toolbox deck, really. I'm not sure if Bandai will ever really address this, or if there really is a need to address this, but this deck just never seems to really die, but congratulations to you, Zach. Next, let's talk about Dan Bang's Imperialdramon list. Dan Bang is hopefully someone I don't really need to talk too much about. He's somewhat of a legend within the Digimon Card Game community, and Imperialdramon is the deck that really shot him into stardom in the game. So it's really nice to see that he's back to his roots here. And this is a very, very cool list. So if you want to see more details, especially with Dan going into it, you can check out GFG's video on this, because he covers his deck there. But something that I want to talk about is the Hexablow mostly. So Hexablow is a card that a lot of people were talking about adding to the Imperialdramon list, going into the EX7 format, specifically to target stuff like Mother Control, because this deck really struggles against that kind of playstyle otherwise. However, I think the Hexablow is really good just overall, because it synergizes a lot with the deck of source stripping, with your Davis Ken and the Hexablow on top, and it's Tamer removal, which is always nice in any deck really, because Tamers are, we do have a lot more ways of interacting with Tamers, but it's not as abundant as it really should be, so anything card that does that is really well, especially with some of the crazy Tamers that's out there in this format. Something that really stands out to me is only 6 level 5s. That's very scary to me, but like I said in the GFG video that Dan covers this deck in, I think he said he would cut the Giga Dust for the 7th level 5, which makes sense to me. Besides that, I think the deck is fairly standard and not too much has really changed from BT17. But yeah, congratulations to you, Dan Bang. Glad to see that you're back on Imperialdramon. Now I just want to briefly talk about the Armor Vaccine deck. So this is 7th place Jorge's deck. This is a deck that I honestly thought was dead after the ban list, but in both the Niagara and Dallas regionals, this deck did pretty well, and we see it doing well again here. But all 3 times, it's been wildly different lists. So here, I think something interesting is the 3 different egg split. So the Cubemon Yaramon essentially do the same thing, where Cubemon adds to your hand, Yaramon trashes. And then the Cubemon can also tuck an Angel under, and you have 6 targets for that between the Magna Angemons, Angemon Ace, and the Shurugimon Ace. So it can come up every now and then, I guess. I think another interesting card here is the Rise Greymon. So this was a yellow staple back in the day because it just plays your tamer for free, but you don't get an on-play effect. But I find it interesting that it's in this build because 3 of your 5 tamers have on-plays you want to activate. But the Inherit is really nice because it adds aggression. So if you have this under your Shurugimon Ace, it gives Sec +1 if you have 3 tamers, and then you also have Alliance with the Shurugimon. So you can do 3 checks, or if it's under your Magnamon, you can do 2 checks, unsuspend, do 2 more checks. So that's pretty niche, cool, I guess. Yeah, so Shurugimon Ace is the one level 6 ace. Typically I see people running stuff like Valkyriemon here. It being a vaccine probably synergizes better with the deck, especially because you're running cards like the Emissary of Hope here, so you can cheat it out from your security for the 1 cost of the option. Again, we're seeing that BT16 Cody and TK Tamer, which lets you play a Patamon turn over turn and gain a memory whenever you digivolve into one of your yellow. You're not getting the DNA digivolve effect to de-digivolve. And my only issue is you only have the 2 Patamons on plays that you really want to use. I'm just wondering if maybe something like one of the Karis could fit in here better, or even just maybe like Digimon Emperor or something. But I'm not a yellow player at heart, so again, anyone is welcome to enlighten me in the comments. But yeah, congratulations to you, Jorge. This is still a really cool deck, and it's cool to see that the ban list isn't really shutting this deck down. Next up is 9th place Miguel's Leviamon list. Leviamon is a deck we saw coming back at the Dallas Regionals, and just looking at it and just looking at the meta, this seems like an obvious anti-meta pick. It's really positioned well against a lot of the top decks such as Demon Lords, MirageGaogamon, Imperialdramon. So it makes sense for this deck to come back. Everyone thought BT15 would be its heyday, but it didn't really perform well. But now in EX7 and BT17, this deck really seems to have gotten second wind. It looks like a pretty standard deck to me. I guess it's using the new Dobermon and Cerberusmon to really take advantage of the Cerberusmon X Dobermon X package. The Biting Crush is a really good trap, quote unquote, for a lot of decks, because a lot of decks really play things by effect. So Imperialdramon obviously has Partition, the Davis can, the starter deck Dragon Mode. So this deck is just feasting on Imperialdramon players. Now MirageGaogamon even plays stuff by effect because they have the Huangkunmon package. The Biting Crush basically locks out Demon Lords from their win con of Agudamon. They have to really bait out the Biting Crush before they can go into their Agudamon or somehow have like an alternative win con. Yeah, like the Biting Crush is just a really good card in this format. Leviah X is gonna decimate any board really, especially with the decline of Magnamon X, which was probably its biggest counter. Yeah, congratulations to you, Miguel. It's really nice to see that this deck finally has its time to shine. Next up, let's talk about the 14th place Mother Control Black Hybrid deck. So this is Tyler's deck. So Tyler, for those of you who don't know, is Skyforce Gaming on YouTube, and they also have a Discord server where they do weekly tournaments. So again, you can go check out his video for a more in-depth analysis of his deck. But I just want to put in my 2 cents on the deck here as well. So I personally believed coming into this format that although this deck is very annoying and kind of oppressive to play against, and if anybody brings it to my locals, I'm going to get very frustrated. Ultimately, I strongly believe that this deck is not a deck that would perform well in a 9-round tournament, strictly because this has the security control problem where a lot of games are going to time. But I feel like this deck suffers from that even more than security control, because your win con isn't as reliable, I guess, as security controls. I don't know, something with security control, even though that's also annoying deck that goes to time, I feel like it can still also check 5 securities and swing for game after. This deck, I don't know what it is, but something about this deck, I just feel like you just can't do it the way security control does. Maybe it's because you're just playing a lot of Tamers and not a lot of Digimon, but Tyler seems to have really circumvented this with his list. He has a lot of Digimon in here that can also have quite a bit of aggression to the deck. So he's playing a total of 11 hybrids, and the hybrids pair really well with the Seeker's Tamers, because you can just unbindling at the end of the turn and you have a Tamer ready to go again for the next hybrid, and also just gain their start of main effects. He also has a lot of ace plays, I guess, with the Edamon and the Rapidmon. So Rapidmon is unaffected as long as you have a black Tamer, as long as you have your green Tamer, which is your Shogo. And it can go into either of your aces, Vike or Mega Gargo. And typically we see Edamon Valk, so there's no Valk here for the Edamon, but the Edamon can still go into the Mega Gargomon and the Vikemon aces, which are both pretty powerful aces. With their floodgate effects in the in the Mega Gargomon, and the D-Digivolve is such a powerful mechanic that the Vikemon has, and also locks Digimon from swinging if they have one or less sources. And the Mega Gargomon ace also has a little bit of aggression because it's able to unsuspend end of attack, so it can swing twice. And if you have the Rapidmon under, you're also trashing security if you delete something in battle. So this isn't just like this pure stall version of the deck. There is aggression to the deck. And I think the most interesting is the Digimon one of. So it's mainly to search out your Tamers and play them, I guess. But I think the funny thing is it can also play out any of your aces, including the Paladin mode ace, because they're all 10 cost or less. Tyler also has 2 of the Quartzmon, which seems to be a win condition for him, because this deck is a deck that goes wide, and inherently there is a bit of a stall tendency to the deck, so your opponent may also go wide. In which case, Quartzmon's coming real cheap, and it's going to be trashing multiple security, 2 to 3, and just swinging for game, which will really catch people off guard if they don't know that this card is waiting for them in Tyler's hand. So that's really cool. But congratulations to you, Tyler, for making a deck that I genuinely did not think would work in a 9-round tournament to work this well and earn a top 16 placement. Now, the final deck I want to talk about is the 16th place Imperialdramon list from Alexander. I feel kind of bad even calling this an Imperialdramon list because only 2 of their 6 level 6s are Imperialdramons. I wouldn't really call this something like, I don't know, Davis Kent Toolbox maybe, because they don't even have full-up Yggdrasil, they also have Leviamons. This is a really interesting list. So, first and foremost, let's talk about the egg, Fluffymon. This is a green egg, so all your rookies can still go on this except for your BT16 Wormmon. And when you delete something in battle, it's gain a memory. So I guess this deck is really intended to battle things more, because you can see that with the Dino Bee as well. Because the Dino Bee gets plus 3,000 DP and can attack when DNA Digivolving, and the Inheritable also trashes the security when you delete something in battle. And we also have the Hexabla, which has the Ice Suit ability, so that you don't care about DP when you battle things. Magnamon X is just a big boy, big blocker, big attacker. You have the 5 armors with the 2 Tokumogumons and the 3 Magnamons. There's a lot going on with this deck. You also have the Shuyu Lin, which could really only go under the Magnamon X as far as I can tell. I don't think it goes under anything else. But still, this is a very, very interesting list, very, very innovative, very cool. This deck really stood out to me when I was going over the top 60 list, and I just had to talk about it. I don't know if I play this, but I really respect the innovation. This is a crazy deck, dude. And congratulations to you for piloting it all the way to top 16. And that is it for my top 16 breakdown of the September 28 regionals hosted by Carta Magica. Once again, I want to give a shout out to Carta Magica and Bandai for hosting an amazing event, and also for the Eggman Events team for uploading all of the deck lists to their website and making it easily accessible for all of us to review and really help us prepare for the upcoming tournaments and look ahead to future formats as well. So my closing thoughts on the first EX7 tournament is it's a pretty diverse spread. And I know Demon Lords won this, but I'm not sure if that necessarily makes it the top dog. I do think it's the meta hasn't really settled yet. I think there's still a lot of room for innovation and discovery here, and yeah, I'm really excited to see how the format continues to progress. And I believe we have another regionals coming up in October, so I will see you guys then when we cover the top 16 deck profile for that.